My name is Average Joe, and I'm a proud geek with expertise in movies, superheroes, and animation.
Hey, how are you? My name is Ben, and I am a movie buff. I am one part video game nerd, one part comic book nerd, but all parts movie nerd.
Our mission is to bring nerd culture to the masses
by putting it all under the microscope.
Welcome to the Bat Jar Podcast.
Movies, comics, graphic novels, TV, cartoons, animation, nerds are geeks, entertainment culture. Hear it on the Bat Jar, Nerdy Power. Nerds and geeks, come gather around the scene. Come and join us in the Bat Jar. Come and tune into Average Joe and his team. Lots of room here in the Bat Jar. When the newest nerdy news drops, these podcast pals put it under the scope. DC, Marvel, Disney, Star Wars, cinematic, multiverses, mega Christmas, Grinch's franchise. Hear it on the Bat Jar, Nerdy Power.
Hello there, and welcome to the Bat Jar Podcast, where we put nerd and geek culture under the microscope.
And sometimes Christmas decorations, given from what I'm seeing in Average Joe's apartment here. So there's that
we're
too.
in the Bat Jar Studios, remember?
Oh, right. So sorry about that.
Whether or not the studio doubles as my apartment, the audience can imagine to themselves.
Yeah.
But yes, this is a controversial thing that people will get angry at me for, but the reality of my life is that I do not live where I spend Christmas. Mm-hmm. And I have a lot of Christmas decorations, so I'm trying to justify my position here. But in order for me to actually put in the effort to put up all these Christmas decorations I own, I have to put them up in enough advance time. You know, my apartment or maybe the studio, whatever you want to call this place. You decide. Yeah. It is very Christmassy in here, I admit. Even the Bat Jar is decked out for the halls. Does that make sense?
Yeah, basically. And you'll have to imagine that Average Joe and myself here, we're both wearing Christmas hats. Average Joe is... Oh, sorry. I thought you were shaking your head to say, no, I'm not. But I'm like, no, you definitely are.
No, there's no bells here, but I got two little pom-poms on my...
Yeah, Average Joe is wearing one that looks like Santa Claus, of course, and I'm wearing one that kind of doubles as a one part baseball cap, one part Santa hat, which is cool. I've never worn a hat like this.
It's like a mullet.
Yeah, that's right. It's like the mullet Christmas edition. But no, I'm loving it in here. I'm the kind of guy, I like to start celebrating Christmas around like the 25th of November, because at that point it's a month away from Christmas, and I feel like that's when we're getting nice and close. But no, this is cool. I feel like if anything, I've gotten desensitized to the whole, like when people decide to start setting up for Christmas on like the 1st of November, because it starts getting colder, and like we got snow, a week ago, slightly more than a week ago. So it feels like it's later in the year than it actually is.
Yeah, I mean, ideally I would wait until the first Sunday of Advent to start decorating for Christmas.
Yeah.
But again, that only gives me about 2.5, maybe 3 weeks to enjoy my decorations on my own. So I add a little extra time onto that.
Yeah.
And I've never done anything earlier than November 12th because I got to respect the veterans and those who have died for Remembrance Day.
That's a fair point.
If you live in the States, I guess it'd be Veterans Day for you. But in Canada, we call it Remembrance Day.
Yep.
Because we don't have a Memorial Day. So our Remembrance Day is Memorial Day and Veterans Day combined, fused together. Mm-hmm. So nothing earlier than the 12th. But yes, the studio is about 87% decorated right now. I still have some lights to hang and the traded.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
And my Advent wreaths are front and center, and you'll notice that the wise men are like way far away from the creche, and you can't see them from where you're sitting. But Joseph and Mary are closer, but still far away from the creche. So we try to I am trying a little bit here to intentionally celebrate, the liturgical season. So
are you going to move them a little bit every day?
That's not great. Every day, maybe once a week.
Okay.
They don't have far to go there. They're sitting on the little table. If I move them, they'd have to move like half a centimeter every day.
Yeah, I was going to say, just a little bit. Yeah, just every few days they travel an inch closer to the nativity set.
But that's enough of that for now. Ben the movie buff.
Yes.
It's good to see you again.
Likewise. How you doing?
Not too bad. I mean, I'm only at 87% Christmas decoration, so I'm not quite there yet.
Cool.
But we are talking about something today that I'm very excited about. I've been excited about it for a long time. Mm-hmm. We're talking about Disney Plus.
Yeah.
And this is really the start of the streaming wars.
Yep.
Netflix, I found out, was introduced back in 2008.
Yeah.
As a streaming service. Before it was a service that you could get DVDs from them. So they've had their streaming service since 2008 or whenever that was, a long time ago now.
Yep.
And would you agree that for a good 6, 7, 8 years, like they were the streaming service?
Absolutely. I mean, maybe there were other streaming services, but I remember, so I've been out of university for more than 7 years now, and I remember towards the end of university in my second to last year or last year, people talking about Netflix, which I'd heard of before as the DVD mailing service, but then I actually knew a few people that had Netflix, and I would look at their selection, and there wasn't much back then, but I do remember that if someone was to ask me, name a streaming service, the only one I would have known by name would have been Netflix.
Yeah, I remember 2012 would have been the first time I was exposed to Netflix, and it was just interesting to see, first of all, something that was it kind of felt like a giant DVD menu.
Yeah.
But instead of just choosing between like featurettes, it was like you're choosing between entire movies and TV shows.
Yeah. No, it was really cool.
And they had a lot of stuff on there that was, I remember watching like the 90s X-Men and the 90s Spider-Man shows that I recall from my childhood and being like, wow, I can watch these again, except I can watch them however I want, whenever I want.
Yeah.
I don't have to be controlled by when the station decides to air the particular episodes. I can watch whatever one I want. I can pause it.
Yep.
You know, it was a very great distraction from studying.
Absolutely. And I mean, yeah, the thing I remember, the first movie I watched on the Netflix streaming service, remember I was with a few of my friends that were girls. We watched the first half of Notting Hill, a romantic movie with Julia Roberts and Hugh Grant. But yeah, that was my first kind of exposure to Netflix. But then, of course, a few years later, I finally got an account to myself and have since then spent many, many hours on Netflix.
Yeah, definitely when I first was exposed to it, I wasn't really interested in their original content.
Yeah.
I remember watching shows like Breaking Bad.
Yes.
And The Walking Dead, just TV shows that I just did not have access to.
Right.
And at that point, I think Breaking Bad was already over or close to being over. Yep. So I remember kind of watching it all the way to the end.
Yep.
And it wasn't really until I think the Marvel Netflix shows came along that I started to actually care about their original programming.
Yeah.
And even to this day, I don't go on Netflix very much. And we'll talk about partially why. But all to say, for years, Netflix has been like the streaming service. Amazon Prime Video was launched a few years ago now.
Yeah, that's right.
But it's never, at least as far as I know, been as... Like it didn't seem to really impact Netflix's business all that much.
I don't think so. I think the one thing it had, well, not the one thing, but one of the big contributing factors I would argue for its success was that anyone that has Amazon and an Amazon account, and I imagine there are probably millions and millions of people that have Amazon accounts. When you sign up as a Prime member, you get Prime Video. So not only do you have an additional assortment of movies and TV shows, and now, of course, original Amazon content, it means you also get the Prime features with your account, right? So like I signed up for Prime, surprisingly enough, like about a month or so ago, and I was doing some Christmas shopping this past Wednesday, and I did the Christmas shopping, and because I was a Prime member, I don't get charged for shipping and handling, and it's like, oh, you're going to get your stuff in 2 days, and I got my stuff in a day and a half. So that's kind of cool, right? Because sometimes, you order the stuff, especially as it gets closer to Christmas, and you could be waiting 3.5 weeks. Maybe I'm beating the Christmas rush here, but it's kind of nice knowing that I have more movies I can use through Amazon Prime, and I also get the features of not paying shipping and handling and getting your stuff faster. So that's pretty cool.
All right, we get it. You like Amazon Prime.
I do. Guilty as charged.
I know there's a service, there's a lot of streaming services actually in the States that we don't have here in Canada.
Yeah, that's right, huh?
For example, there's Hulu.
Yes, Hulu. Yeah, I've heard of that.
Freeform.
Yep.
CBS All Access. I've complained on this podcast before that DC Universe is not available here in Canada.
Yeah, that's right, huh?
So in Canada, anyway, like there's Crave TV,
right,
which I believe is kind of associated with certain cable companies.
Yep.
Providing TV. So do you know if can you actually just sign up for Crave on its own?
I think so. I mean, okay, so earlier this year, I was watching the remainder of Game of Thrones. Now, of course, I didn't sign up for Crave. I used my brother's account, but I do remember that. I think the way it works is like when you get Crave, you pay a certain amount, but then, of course, and Amazon Prime does this too, where there are certain things you can watch on Crave, but you basically have to purchase like expansions, if you will. Like you have to purchase the add-on. So if you want the HBO add-on, you have to pay a couple extra bucks a month in order to do. I think that's how that works. I was only on Crave for like the 7 final episodes of Game of Thrones. I don't understand it that much because I don't have my own account, but I think that's how that works.
Yeah, and I know CBC has a streaming service now called CBC Gem.
Yeah.
So there aren't too many streaming services in Canada. So unlike the States, I guess Netflix has had more of a dominance in Canada.
Yeah.
And not all the shows you get on Netflix USA are available on Netflix Canada and vice versa. I think Netflix has different licensing agreements with different countries. So
yeah.
It actually, in some ways, it benefits me, and in other ways, it does not.
Yeah, I agree.
But anyway, we've talked a lot about Netflix.
Yep.
We're actually talking today about Disney Plus,
Yep.
which is a streaming service that is obviously made by Disney. It launched this past week on Tuesday, November 12th, a.k.a. the day that it's okay to put up the Christmas decorations.
Yeah.
When they first announced Disney Plus, what was your reaction?
My reaction was something along the lines of like, obviously. I wasn't terribly surprised, kind of excited, but with Netflix being as big as it is and also seeing Amazon Prime come into play, hearing about Disney Plus, my other thought too was any of the things that Disney owns that used to be on Netflix, I was like, I see what's going to go on here is that they're going to take that from Netflix and say, now you can't watch these Marvel movies on Netflix. Now you can't watch Star Wars, because I'm pretty sure that's what's going on. I think that's the whole point, right, is that they're taking their valuable properties and saying, you can only watch these if you sign up for Disney Plus. You can't find them anywhere else but Disney Plus. So yeah, I could totally understand. I was like, yep, I see what's going on here. You know, Disney is powerful enough as it is, but now it's just going to get more and more powerful.
Well, it's just interesting that more and more people are looking at streaming as the option for creating content and making revenue, because I don't know, the fact that pretty much every major content creator in Hollywood is looking at owning a streaming service. Yeah. Not just producing content for an existing, but having their own streaming service. Yeah. Would suggest that either people aren't going to the movies anymore, people aren't watching or aren't paying for television anymore. Yeah. Or the third thing being that they just prefer the streaming kind of style of consumption over going to the theater or paying for, destination television. Right. Okay. When you have to show up at a certain place to watch a certain show at a certain time.
Right. Is that a thing?
Event television, I don't know what else to call it. Like when because you can't watch, for example, you can't watch the Maple Leafs game unless you show up and turn on your TV at 7:00 on Saturday night.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah. No, fair enough. Yeah.
You don't have to physically go somewhere. You have to be like on that channel, on your couch at that time, kind of thing.
Right. That's right. Yeah. You're being controlled by a schedule. And yeah, you have to adhere to this schedule in order to see the stuff you want to see.
So I was kind of made aware of the whole reality that Disney Plus was coming as the Fox acquisition was going through. Yeah. Because when they first announced that Disney was looking to buy Fox, I was kind of flabbergasted, because I'm like, why do you need all this stuff? And then I realized, like for the old Star Wars movies, and for Avatar and their parks, and of course for the X-Men. Yeah. But beyond that, I didn't even think about the point that was being made that they're looking for more content for their streaming service. Yeah. And that buying out Fox would get them a greater ownership over Hulu. Yep. So that they could actually use that more. So I've known for... I remember it was like, I was in Saskatchewan at the time for a retreat. It was like December 2016 they announced that acquisition. Yeah. So it's been almost 3 years, which is weird to think of. No, it was December 2017. I remember because I just seen The Last Jedi, and I had feelings.
You had strong feelings.
Yeah. So it's been almost 2 years now since I was really made aware of the fact that Disney was going to get a streaming service. And, when they first kind of made their announcements, what it was going to look like, how it was going to have all the Disney stuff that you're familiar with, and they were going to have Marvel and Pixar and Star Wars, and they included National Geographic, which isn't really it's not my thing, but it's a thing for people.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
I was genuinely really excited, and as time went on, they started announcing some of the original content that was going to be part of the streaming service, and at D23 this year, they announced a whole bunch of stuff, including all these Marvel shows, which we've done a whole episode on, talking about Phase 4 and all these. Yeah. There's now, I think, 8 Marvel shows that are being made for Disney Plus. I was super hyped. You can ask people I work with. I was counting down the days to Disney Plus. Yeah. The day of, I got up at 10 after 6 in the morning, and by 6:26, I was signed up for Disney Plus. I didn't want to chance it. I figured a lot of people were going to try and get on there, and it was going to be laggy or something. but I got on there right away.
Yep.
And so our conversation today is going to be kind of giving a review, if you will, of the streaming service, our initial impressions of it.
Yeah.
And then one of the new shows, Disney Plus originals that's on there, is a Star Wars series called The Mandalorian.
Yep.
So we're going to talk about Disney Plus, and then we're going to transition talking about The Mandalorian specifically, because I feel like there's a lot to say just about that specific show.
Oh, absolutely.
You've taken your first step into a larger world.
You ready for this?
We'll all be together at long last. We are all connected.
So I got the app the first day, as I said, and I had gotten excited because they did a free trial of this in the Netherlands.
Yeah.
And this priest on YouTube kind of put up a video of him navigating through Disney Plus. So I kind of got a sense of what it was going to look like.
Cool.
And like what kind of material was going to be on there. So I was already aware of what was going to be on there and even what the interface would look like.
Yep.
So people, if you're wondering, I'm using an iPhone and I have a Google Chromecast attached to my TV.
Right.
So the way that I was watching Disney Plus is I was opening the app on my phone and then Chromecasting it to my TV.
Cool.
So I haven't tried using the website yet. So my experience of kind of navigating it is going to be based on the app.
Yeah, I did use the website, so I can try and
Okay.
offer a different perspective.
Perfect. So what I found is that there is a lot of content on there, but it's kind of hard to find. Like they have one kind of main page with a bunch of suggested categories, and then they have sub-menus for all their big intellectual properties.
Yep.
But then there's a lot of stuff that's on the service that unless you go searching for it, it's not easy to find.
Which reminds me of Netflix. I remember a year or two ago going on Netflix and literally typing in like as many movies as I could think of as movies that I wanted to see. Half the time they weren't on the streaming service on Netflix, but other times I would find them. And it's interesting because I remember going through like, I guess the kind of row presentation, right? Of like, go to the next part, go to the next part, go to the next part. Oh, I can't find this movie here. But then you look for it in the search bar and then it pops up. And I guess it goes to show that, yeah, they're not going to show you everything. But yeah, it's like you have to, if it's owned by Disney, you just have to search for it and hope it's there. So yeah, that does remind me a bit of Netflix.
But at least with Netflix, there's an option to like search by genre or...
That's true, yeah, that's fair.
You know, but there's literally, they have... If you click on the search, in the app anyway, there's like a search button.
Yeah.
And if you click that, it kind of has some pre-populated kind of categories. Like they have a Spider-Man collection. So if you click that, it shows you all the Spider-Man stuff. And then they have a Darth Vader one. So they show you the Darth Vader stuff.
Yeah.
But, you know, someone asked me, is Disney's Recess on there?
Yeah.
And I had to literally just do an actual search for the word recess.
Yeah, to find it.
To find it. And if anyone's wondering, it's in there.
Yeah, I would hope so.
But and that's the thing. Not every Disney show, not every Disney movie is on here.
Okay.
You know, like there's a show I watched when I was younger called The Weekenders that is not on Disney Plus.
I love The Weekenders, and it's not on Disney Plus. Oh my goodness, yeah, Weekenders was great.
Later days.
Yeah. Hey, I got who.
but yeah, so my general feedback on the app, at least and of course we have to understand that this is its first week. There's going to be bugs to fix. But I find it hard to navigate.
Yeah, so I accessed Disney Plus on my laptop, so I was kind of using a web browser to check it out. And I didn't take that much time to go through it, but what I did notice, and it's funny, Netflix does this a lot too, where on Netflix, you'd go to the various rows, and one of them might be like recently added, right? And let's say Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, which was on there for a while. And of course, they would want to highlight that, right? So that people watch this movie. But then you go down to like superhero movies. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 is in that row as well. Then you go to comedy. It's still there. Then you go to sci-fi. It's still there. And it's funny how when you browse, you just kind of see like the same thing 4 or 5 times. And it's like, I get it. It's there. Like I saw the movie in theaters. I'm not like unaware that it exists or that it's on Netflix or whatnot. And I did find that a lot with the front page. of Disney Plus, because of course at the top in the banner it's like The Mandalorian, and I'm like, yep, of course, because that's like I'm here to watch that specifically. But then you go down to like TV shows, Star Wars recently added, or sort of things like that. And I came across The Mandalorian like 4 or 5 times on the front page alone, and I did find that with some other properties as well, which I guess that's them heavily promoting that. But it is funny when it's like I've heard a million times that Mandalorian is coming exclusively to Disney Plus, so it's not lost on me that it's there.
Yeah, it's hard to not compare it to Netflix as a service.
Yeah.
I've noticed a couple times with TV shows on Netflix, if you start watching a show and then you stop,
yep,
and then come back to it later, it picks up where you left off.
Yeah.
On Disney Plus, it starts you back at the beginning.
Interesting.
Like the app isn't smart enough yet to like remember where you were. So that's kind of a bummer.
Yeah.
It doesn't have it. You're allowed to create a watch list so that you can create like a list of shows to watch.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
But you have to go click on your profile and then click the watch list button to find it. So whereas with Netflix, your queue of your shows you want to watch is just there on the main page.
Right.
So again, maybe they'll add that in later, but it just, again, that's another example of how the app isn't very intuitive to use. It takes a little more like push this button, this button. Like you got to know what you're looking for.
Yeah, it's interesting with these streaming. I mean, I've only really used Netflix and Amazon Prime in the last 5 or 6 years, but it's interesting how I feel like because we've used those streaming platforms so many times, I feel like we have a better idea of kind of like what we like and what we don't like, right? If we spend a lot of time on streaming websites, we get a sense for what works and what doesn't when it comes to finding things and presenting itself. Like I find it weird how on Amazon Prime, when they have a show like Community, it's like, oh, Community season 4. Community season 7 or season 6, Community season 3. Like you basically, they have you have to click on the specific season. It's not like Netflix or maybe Disney Plus. I didn't get there yet, where you click on one show and then it shows you all the seasons to choose from. In Amazon Prime, you have like so many seasons to choose from before you find the one that you want. So it's an interesting kind of layout decision, which I don't know if I'm a huge fan of.
Yeah, so certainly the search function is very important in Disney Plus because if you don't see a show or a movie, it doesn't mean it's not there. You just got to go looking for it.
Exactly.
And a lot of the content is very family friendly. Like they've openly said they're not going to put any R-rated content on Disney Plus.
Yeah, that's fair.
They're going to take any R-rated movies that Fox would have owned and put them on Hulu.
Right,
which doesn't benefit Canadians because we don't have Hulu.
Exactly, yeah.
But it is what it is. So maybe they'll end up on Canadian Netflix.
Yeah.
So this is definitely a streaming service for families. Like, and that's always kind of been Disney's idea.
Yeah.
So if you're going to ask yourself, should I get Disney Plus? It depends on who you are.
Yep.
For myself, as someone who's in their late 20s and grew up watching a lot of Disney shows, there is a lot of nostalgia for me to go back and watch some of these shows that I watched as a kid. But, some of them don't grab my attention anymore. Like, I started watching Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers, and the theme song, I was like, yeah, Rescue Rangers. But then within the first, 4 minutes, I was like, all right.
Yeah.
Moving on, something else now.
Yeah, it was nice when I was a kid, but now it just doesn't have as much meaning.
Like, if I had kids, this would be the best thing ever, because then I could literally I have all this family-friendly programming that I grew up on that I can share with my kids.
Yeah. So one thing actually I have to commend Disney on. This is such a small detail, but I found this on Reddit. Someone had taken a screenshot of this. I'm sure for those of you who remember, in the movie Monsters, Inc., there's this ongoing joke where Mike Wazowski at one point is featured on a commercial and he's featured on a magazine, but there's always something in front of his eye. There's always something in front of his face, and you think he's disappointed about the fact that he's been covered up by something, but then he's like, I'm in a commercial. I'm on a cover of a magazine. And they ran with that joke on Disney Plus because for the page for Monsters, Inc., when you finish watching the movie and the actual screen for the movie itself kind of goes off to the side and minimizes a bit, you'll see a screenshot of Sully and Mike Wazowski. But where the screen for the movie moves over to on that screen, it goes over Mike Wazowski's face. So it's continuing that whole gag of the thing always goes in front of Mike, so you never get to see Mike Wazowski, but you always get to see Sully. And I thought that was really funny. My wife and I looked at that this morning and had a good laugh over it.
So they're going to do weekly releases for their episodes, for their original content.
Yep.
I actually prefer that over the Netflix model of let's just throw a whole season on at once.
Yeah.
Because it recreates the experience of, I guess, episodic, network destination television. And it allows you to, and I guess you're exuding less willpower, but it leaves you in a position where you can't binge it.
Yes.
You know, and binging is very unhealthy.
Yeah, it's funny. The only time I've really binged a show on Netflix was for Stranger Things season 3 earlier this year, and it was solely for the reason that we were about like 2 weeks away from the due date of our son, and we wanted to watch Stranger Things completely before we went to the hospital for my wife to give birth to my son. So that was literally like if our son was not to come for another month or so, we would have watched like 1 or 2 episodes a day and kind of leave it at that. But because we felt like we were on a bit of a schedule, we're like, let's go through all of this, and we finished it all in a day and a half. But no, I do agree for the most part that, yeah, I'm not one to sit down and spend 10 hours. Oh, there's another Christmas card there. I'm not one to spend 10 hours watching as much TV as I can. I do like taking breaks here and there. But yeah, I feel like there is, as much as it sucks on the one hand, on the other hand, it is really exciting to be watching a show and then for it to be to finish with that episode and then going like, oh man, what's going to happen next week? And now you have a week to kind of reflect on what you saw and anticipate what's going to happen, which you really don't get if you're binging it. You just get to go right in it, no patience, just boom, right into the next one.
Yeah, and it's certainly on their end, it's a great way to keep subscribers because you sign up for these free trials, so people try to like watch as much as they can.
Exactly. Yeah,
and then not pay for it. But with
Yep.
And I've seen other services like DC Universe do this, where they essentially make it so there's at least one new episode of their original content coming out every week. Mm-hmm. So that way you're kind of stuck paying for it.
Right.
It gives you the option to create 7 profiles.
Yeah.
And it allows you to have up to 4 simultaneous streams going on.
Cool. Okay. That's not bad.
Now, Netflix offers that, but at a more expensive price point.
Yes, that's right.
I think Netflix has like 3 different tiers of pricing right now.
That's right. Yeah.
But Disney Plus only has the one. In Canada, it's $8.99 a month.
Yep.
Or $89.99 for the whole year.
Yeah.
I went with the monthly plan myself.
Yeah.
It's easier for me.
Yep.
And it basically allowed me to create a profile for my brothers and my parents, and so now
that's pretty awesome.
Now my brother and sister-in-law can watch Disney Plus, and I don't have to worry about them watching at the same time as me because the interface allows for that. Bob Iger, who's like the head of Disney, says that feature is set up that way because they're thinking of this being used for families.
Yeah, absolutely.
Although he's aware of the fact that basically people are going to take advantage of it.
Yep.
And apparently Disney has some kind of way of they're going to like enforce this later on and make sure that people aren't password sharing. Because
right.
I can understand the controversy there. It's like you're accessing the material without paying for it. So
right.
Whether they actually crack down on that or not, who knows? Mm-hmm. I mean, that was how you got to watch Mandalorian this week, is because I gave you.
That's right.
I mean,
thank you for that again.
I could have just made a profile for you, but I didn't think you needed it full time, so I didn't. So I'm sorry if you feel hurt.
The nerve. No, it's fine. In fact, when you mentioned the family option, I might even talk to my family and see because I mean, think about it. Yeah, like that is actually kind of a nice idea that if you have like 3 or 4 people that all want to use Disney Plus, and it's like if it's only $90 per year. If 3 or 4 people are splitting that, then it's even cheaper, and then you still get to have those extra options of things to watch. So that is pretty cool, actually. So I do want to get it at some point. I'm not sure when I'm going to get it, but I at some point I do want to invest.
Well, see, I would argue if you're a fan of Star Wars, or if you're a fan of Marvel, if you're a fan of Star Wars, maybe get it right away so you can start watching Mandalorian.
Yeah.
But if you're a fan of Marvel, wait until Falcon and the Winter Soldier comes out next November.
Right. Yeah,
because they do have a bunch of the MCU movies on there, but some of the movies like Thor Ragnarok and Avengers Infinity War and Black Panther are in licensing deals with Netflix until sometime in 2020.
Oh,
so those
interesting.
Interestingly, Avengers Endgame is on Disney Plus, but not the movie it's directly connected to, Infinity War.
That's so interesting. Wow.
Yeah, because basically every new Disney movie will go straight to Disney Plus.
Right, of course.
But movies that came out previously had pre-existing contracts.
Yeah.
So they're kind of, you can look them up, like you can search for Infinity War on Disney Plus and it'll tell you when it's going to be available.
Oh my god. Wow.
But I would say for like adults, Disney Plus is generally much younger. It's a younger platform. It's for younger people generally.
Yep.
So if you're a diehard Marvel fan, there's all kinds of like old Marvel shows on there, but you can probably wait until, like I said, Falcon and the Winter Soldier is the first Disney Plus Marvel show to come out, and that's not until November 2020. So
wow,
got lots of time there for that.
Indeed.
If you're a Star Wars fan, as we're gonna there's something on there right now that I would say is worth watching with The Mandalorian.
Yep,
So that's
absolutely.
And all of the Clone Wars, Rebels, Star Wars Resistance, pretty much everything Star Wars except for the holiday special
Yeah. Oh, darn.
is on Disney Plus.
Yeah.
Have you heard about the Simpsons controversy with Disney Plus?
I heard that it was on Disney Plus, but yeah, I guess not. So enlighten me.
So apparently people are upset with Disney because they put the Simpsons on Disney Plus
Yeah.
in like the 16.9 aspect ratio.
Oh, I think I did hear about that actually. Yeah. Okay.
So, for people who are unfamiliar, TV for a long time was filmed in 4:3
Yeah.
aspect ratio.
Yeah.
Which means that 4 inches long and 3 inches high. Basically, TVs were more box shaped.
Exactly. Yeah, they're full
so
screen.
people filmed their TV shows and animated TV shows like The Simpsons to fit a 4:3 aspect ratio. And so for the first like 20 years of The Simpsons were filmed that way.
Yeah.
If you were to then play a TV show that was filmed in 4:3 on a widescreen TV,
Yeah.
you'd have these big black bars on the side.
Yes.
So generally what people do now is they either play the show with the black bars on the side of their screen,
Yep.
or they stretch it out or zoom in so that it can be a widescreen format.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And apparently that's what they've done for The Simpsons is they have put it all into 16:9 aspect ratio.
Okay.
So
yeah.
what that's done is it's basically zoomed in a bunch on the shots.
Right.
And you're apparently, I'm not a huge Simpsons fan, but
Yep.
people are genuinely upset. They're like, you're missing out on a lot of important details.
Right.
They say there's a lot of visual humor with The Simpsons.
Yeah.
And so when you're zoomed in on a shot, you're missing a whole bunch of stuff that's happening on the screen, and it's impacting the experience.
Yeah, I don't know if this is what the term. So the term I've heard before is pan and scan, where they basically do that. Is that you have a movie shot in one format, but then that format has to be changed if it's being shown on TV or whatnot. And if you have something that was filmed in widescreen and then you have to zoom in and now it's full screen, or something that's full screen and now it's widescreen, then it means that you would be missing part of it. And this could be a topic for another day. But so many directors have been very much against pan and scan because they're like you're getting a different experience if you're not seeing literally the whole picture. So no, that's fair. I think I did hear something about that a little bit.
Are you a big Simpsons fan? Are you triggered by that at all?
Not really. I mean, I really like Futurama. If we're talking about like the creator of The Simpsons and doing Futurama and all that.
I wonder if Futurama will go on Disney Plus.
Yeah, I don't know. That's a good question. But I've watched a few episodes of Simpsons here and there, but I've never really gotten into it. But one of my friends absolutely loves The Simpsons. So anything I know about The Simpsons, I've basically learned from him.
I think the biggest thing I'm thankful for on Disney Plus is Gargoyles.
Yeah, that's right.
Because that's a show I watched when I was a kid.
Oh man!
But have never seen it on reruns or anything, so I'm like rewatching it for the first time.
That must be interesting.
It was like, it's pretty good. I'm pretty into it so far.
No, that's great.
And there's all kinds of shows I'll get to eventually. Like there's all of Kim Possible on there, so I'll rewatch all that at some point. There's Recess, and there's I watched the first episode of Smart Guy.
Yes, I remember Smart Guy. Oh, I do. Yeah.
So they've got like every Disney Renaissance movie pretty much, and they've got a bunch of their classic Disney movies and all their kind of like live action sports movies. And for people who grew up on the Disney Channel, or as we call it, the Family Channel, there's all those Raven and Hannah Montana and Sweet Life and all those kind of shows in there too. So
oh man,
definitely it's worth it if you have a family. For me myself at this point, like I'm paying for Disney Plus, but I get access to Netflix through my family, so I'm not paying. Right. I'm not forced to pay for both.
Right.
If it came down to it, and I was only allowed to have one streaming service, it would be hard for me to choose.
I imagine. Yeah.
The only thing that's really keeping me on the Netflix now are some of their original programs.
Yeah.
The Flash is considered a Netflix original in Canada.
Okay.
So I'm a huge fan of the Arrowverse.
Yep.
So I'm kind of tied to Netflix for that if I want to watch it legally.
Yep.
But I don't have to choose. I'm fortunate in that respect.
Yep.
But I would say if you're an adult, wait to get Disney Plus.
Cool.
What's your sense before we move on to Mandalorian?
Oh, geez. I think I'm pretty much on the same boat with you, and at least on the bright side, that having that 7-day trial, because I believe it is 7 days, like that's your opportunity to look and see what's there, And if, if you're into a lot of the superhero movies, like the Marvel stuff especially, and Star Wars and Disney. Yeah, I meant like if that's your forte, then yeah, I can totally understand. In fact, it already sounds like millions and millions of people have already signed up for Disney
10
Plus.
million people.
10 million, yeah, exactly. So it's already doing fine. But I don't know. I think for me, with every streaming service, I'd take a month or so just to get a sense of like, what it's like and what's coming and whether it's worth my time. But I feel, even if you don't want Disney Plus, there will be other options. And yeah, like you said, in a year or so, there will be even more stuff that comes on. So maybe it's worth waiting, but I'll probably in the next few months get it.
I have experienced a fair bit of lag when I've been on there.
Me too, actually. I'm glad you brought that up because I was like, is my laptop getting old? Like I literally got it earlier this year.
No, and I've watched it at work during lunch. I've watched it at another person's house, and I've watched it in my own apartment, and I have experienced lag every time. So I assume that it's just because there's so many people using it, they just weren't anticipating.
I wonder, yeah. And you're talking about like when you're watching the shows, right?
Yeah.
When it's like seems there's like a brief freeze or whatnot. They're like,
Yeah.
that's weird. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. No, me too.
So maybe that's another reason to wait.
Yeah, that's right for them to fix that bug.
Figure that out.
Yeah.
And also, before we move on, the Jeff Goldblum show.
Yeah.
The World According to Jeff Goldblum.
Yeah.
It is hilarious.
Okay.
I saw this man in person in August at Fan Expo Canada, and his persona is as weird on TV as it is in real life.
Yeah.
So I know from having seen him at his panel that how he acts on this show is like just his normal way of doing things. Like
absolutely, yeah.
He's not trying to like, oh, I'm Jeff Goldblum. Like he's not trying to like play a persona. It's like that's just how he acts. And the goofy awkwardness to me is like what makes the show interesting.
Mm-hmm.
In the 2 episodes that show has right now, one he's learning about sneakers, and the second one's about ice cream, and it's just these really weird, funny interactions with people. So
it's too funny.
Yeah, if you do get Disney Plus, check out The World According to Jeff Goldblum. He barely stutters. Surprisingly.
Oh, really?
Yeah, there's barely any uhs in there.
Because, I was totally going to throw a typical Jeff Goldblum joke. But I was like, he barely said, okay, cool.
So now let's talk about what's probably the highest profile Disney Plus original project that's on their service. The Star Wars series, The Mandalorian.
Mm-hmm.
This is the first ever live action Star Wars television series.
Yeah, that's right, huh? It is.
There's been several animated ones.
Yep.
Going back to the 80s, they had like the droids and the
Ewoks. Yep.
But this is the first live action show. There were plans when Revenge of the Sith was coming out I think George Lucas was developing a live action show that was meant to be set between 3 and 4.
Right.
And it was going to talk about like the criminal underworld element of the Star Wars universe. So it was going to be like a smaller story.
Okay.
But it never picked up steam, never went anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
So this is indeed the first time we've had a episodic. I mean, I guess all the Star Wars movies are episodic.
Yep.
Because they're literally called episodes. But the first television series in live action about Star Wars.
Yep.
And from the second it was announced as The Mandalorian, I got super curious because I am a Star Wars fan.
Yep.
But I don't know a whole lot about the expanded universe / legends content around the Mandalorian culture. Have you invested in any of that yourself?
A little bit. I mean, as a kid, I played some of the Star Wars video games and those Jedi Quest books. There was also they had some of the journals for an Anakin journal for Episode 1, a Darth Maul journal for Episode 1. They had Jedi Quest, and I think there was another one. But I love those, right, because they were specifically all about the Jedi. And you had Obi-Wan and Anakin and Qui-Gon Jinn. I mean, depending on what time it took place. But you also had a lot of these new characters you were meeting. Yoda came in once in a while. And those I would rent from the library all the time, and I would just that was most of my reading as a kid, was reading those Jedi Quest.
So nothing
books.
About the Mandalorians yourself.
And not much. Yeah, that's right. Not much about the Mandalorian.
Okay. Now, were you aware that the Mandalorians were like a whole culture in Star Wars lore?
Yeah, basically.
Because a lot of people that I've talked to, they're Star Wars fans, but they're mostly fans of the original trilogy.
Right.
And they know that Boba Fett is a Mandalorian.
Yeah.
And so they thought when the show was announced that the show was going to be about Boba Fett.
Right. Yeah.
And I was like, no, it's about another Mandalorian. Like, but he is the Mandalorian.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, he's not. He is a Mandalorian.
Yeah.
And there's a whole culture of these people. And again, I haven't I don't actually know anything about. I just know that it exists.
Yep.
And so like their ignorance of the and lack of knowledge of the existence of this greater lore was bothering me, because I have had friends who are so invested in Star Wars lore, and particularly the stuff of the Mandalorians, that they actually got angry about how they were portrayed in certain books,
Right.
and even some of the movies. And it kind of it didn't impact me at all, because I wasn't familiar with how the Mandalorian culture was portrayed, so I didn't know how it was not being faithful to that.
Right.
So when I heard this show was going to be called The Mandalorian, I'm like, this is great. It's a way to kind of like dive into a part of Star Wars lore that I know has a lot of stuff out there, but I've never consumed it myself.
Right.
And then I found out Jon Favreau was going to be involved.
Yep.
And I'm like, when does this man sleep?
Yeah, I know exactly. Yeah.
Because in the last couple of years, he did The Jungle Book.
Yep.
He was in Spider-Man Homecoming.
Yep.
He did his chef thing.
Yep.
He did The Lion King.
Yep.
He was in another Spider-Man and Endgame.
Yep.
And then somehow he's worked on this as well.
Yep.
I'm like, that's a lot of high-profile projects, and most of them have been done pretty well.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I feel like there are like Spielberg was someone, for example, who also kind of did that for a while. And there's even like a picture I saw recently of him where there's like one guy pulling his pants up, as weird as it sounds, because like he's getting dressed in the morning, and then he has another, like one hand he has like a cup of coffee. You have someone like talking to him. He's also on the phone, and it's basically just showing like Spielberg always has like 10, 15 different projects on the go. And it's like he'll be working on one, but then he'll have other ones he's finishing up, other ones that he's looking ahead to. And like it's crazy that they might manage to find the time for it. But remember, like Steven Spielberg directed and released Jurassic Park and Schindler's List both in the same year. Two movies, 1993. Two movies that are both classics in their own right, are two of my favorite movies of all time, and both of them came out in the same year. So I think
that's why it's in black and white, because he didn't have time to film it in color.
Yeah, exactly. You've got it. So, but that's right. Yeah, Jon Favreau, I guess, has basically been doing that. And let's remember too, when you work on these bigger shows with more people, I mean, yes, he still has lots to do, but I imagine there are certain things that, and I'm kind of guessing here, but I imagine, there are certain things that he can kind of either pawn off on other people, or, hey, get a lot of this work done. I won't be checking on it every day, but I'll be checking on it every week or whatnot. So I feel like there's still ways to kind of make that work, because remember, sometimes while directors may have the biggest job on a show, it doesn't mean that they're the only one that's doing, like, there are lots of other people too that have to kind of make decisions and such, and then present it to the director.
That's right. And he's credited as the creator of this series.
Yeah.
And he is a writer on the first episode,
right?
But he's not involved with every episode.
Exactly. Yeah.
So that is fair. And the other name I want to mention here is Dave Filoni.
Yeah.
Are you familiar with Dave Filoni's work at all?
Vaguely. I'm sure if you tell me some things he's worked on,
well, he's basically been attached to Star Wars for the last 11 years. Like, Star Wars fans know his name.
Oh, okay.
Because he is like the mastermind behind Star Wars: The Clone Wars, the animated series.
Okay. Yeah,
and then he worked on Star Wars Rebels.
Right.
And he's kind of provided some behind the scenes support to some of the live action films as well.
Cool. Okay.
He is basically, he's a younger guy.
Yeah.
Who grew up on Star Wars, and so he's a Star Wars fan getting to work on Star Wars.
Wow.
And so some of the most celebrated Star Wars content in the last 10 years, namely the Clone Wars and Star Wars Rebels, are his babies. Like, they are the brainchildren of Dave Filoni.
Cool.
He is like the person working at Lucasfilm who seems to get Star Wars.
Yeah, which is good. Way to go, Dave.
And so he is a writer and producer, and he has his hand involved in The Mandalorian as well.
Okay.
So it's exciting for me to see him kind of make the jump to Star Wars live action officially.
Yep.
Because I really think if they're going to do more live action Star Wars films, he should be the guy leading the charge.
Yeah, for sure. Because
if you've ever watched Star Wars: The Clone Wars or Star Wars Rebels, they are excellent products.
Yeah.
And they're both on Disney Plus now. So, I think part of why this series is as good as it is because both Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni are involved with it.
Yeah.
Because we're going to go non-spoilers first and then spoilers.
Yep.
The Mandalorian is pretty good.
It is. It totally is.
It is kind of like a Western.
Yes, definitely.
Because, of course, the Mandalorian character is a bounty hunter. Mm-hmm. As of the end of episode 2, we still don't know his name, so everyone is just kind of referring to him as like, oh, you're a Mandalorian.
Yeah, exactly.
So he doesn't have a name yet, but
I have never met a Mandalorian. I've only read the stories.
Your name will be legendary.
The Mandalorian, original series streaming November 12th on Disney+.
You know, and for a lot of the first episode, he's like more or less a silent character.
Yeah.
In fact, until he spoke for the first time, I was like, is he never going to talk? Is that
Yeah.
going to be his thing? That he's because Boba Fett famously has like what 1 or 2 lines in the Star Wars movies he's in.
Yeah, one of them is like "as you wish" is one of them, but yeah, that's right. He has very few lines.
So, I was intrigued by this idea of a Star Wars TV show because the movies have all been fairly large budgets and big productions. And I'm like, can they realistically like recreate Star Wars on a small budget?
Yeah.
Smaller budget. Because I heard the actual budget for this series is gonna be like $10 million an episode or something crazy like that.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
They made the decision to set the story for this series after the events of Return of the Jedi.
Yeah.
But not too far after the events of Return of the Jedi.
For sure,
it's one of those kind of unexplored gray areas in the Star Wars timeline where
That's right.
There is Star Wars Resistance, which is a TV series that is set between 6 and 7, but it's like I think it's within like 6 months of Force Awakens because like Poe Dameron is there and whatnot.
Yeah.
So that one is closer to 7, but this is one of those unexplored gray areas where we don't know too much detail.
Yep.
And so it allows them to kind of do whatever they want.
Yeah, I think that's kind of a smart decision because when it was announced, I think, in 2012, that like, Disney's buying Lucasfilm, we got more Star Wars films coming and whatnot, we're going to do some spin-off Star Wars movies. Of course, people are like, oh, that's cool, so maybe we'll have an opportunity to learn more about certain areas of the Star Wars galaxy that we don't know. And don't get me wrong, I think Rogue One was a step in the right direction, but it's interesting how you can see that in that case, they still wanted to play it safe by having Darth Vader there, by having Grand Moff Tarkin, by having some other characters that we've seen in the Star Wars universe before. Yes, we have these new characters, but of course, it's like, what's the whole point of the movie? Like, oh, we got to get the plans to the Death Star. It's like, oh, well, we all know about the Death Star because we've seen it in a few different Star Wars movies. So, and then of course, Solo, a Star Wars story, also is like, is playing it safe, right? It's like, oh, we get like a backstory of Han Solo, but like we have all these characters that we've definitely seen before and are familiar with. So yeah, that's one of the things that did attract me to The Mandalorian was, of course, the Mandalorian is a culture and he kind of looks, kind of similar to Boba Fett, but by the same token, out of all the characters, unless I'm missing something, out of all the characters in the pilot episode, it seems like they're all new characters. It's like we're going to go take a dive into this area, this point in time where we know very little. You'll see some Easter eggs here and there, but all of this is going to be very new and not, oh, hey, remember this character you've seen in 5 movies before? He's here just so you feel safe and comfortable.
Now, could you tell, because they're not very explicit about it, but could you tell based on how the pilot goes that it is set after Return of the Jedi?
Yeah, that was my guess. I did see a piece of trivia about the show after I watched the episode that specified when it happened, but I was thinking like where would this be? And I'm like, you know what? Like it looks around the time of the original trilogy. But then I think like there's a line, and this happens early enough in the episode, so it's not a spoiler, where they talk about the fact like that the Empire had been defeated. Right? And that line alone, it's like, okay, that happened in Return of the Jedi, so this means this is post-Return of the Jedi. So I feel like that's like the big line that kind of gives away when this series takes place.
Now, I've heard these same, I'll call them casual Star Wars fans, ones that are huge fans of the original trilogy and pretty much everything that is exactly like the original trilogy. I've heard them describe The Mandalorian as saying it has the Star Wars feel. And how I choose to interpret that is saying it has the Star Wars feel that they feel. Like it is, because to me, like there is so many different, like Star Wars is more than just the original trilogy.
That's right. Yeah.
There are all these books, the video games, the TV shows, the prequels, whether you like them or not.
Yep.
The new movies, whether you like them or not.
Yep.
So to say, oh, like this is, if it's not exactly like the original trilogy, it's not Star Wars. Like that, you're living in your little box.
Yep, that's right.
So when I hear people say, "Oh, this has the Star Wars feel," what I interpret that as is they're saying it is visually and stylistically enough like the original trilogy.
Yeah.
That it's easy enough to kind of just imagine, oh yeah, this is part of that same world.
Yeah, although the one thing off the top of my head that I will say is that, yeah, definitely visually and stylistically feels like that. There are a few shots in the pilot that are handheld camera, which, of course, if I remember correctly, if I've seen the original trilogy enough times, I don't think there was any handheld cam there. A lot of the shots are either fixed to a tripod or they're graceful moving shots, but we didn't get handheld shots until, I'm pretty sure, Rogue One, if we're talking about the live-action movies. But yes, for the most part, the look of it and the way, certain scenes flow, the fact that it feels like a Western, a lot of people have said that, like, the first Star Wars movie, there's even some film channel on YouTube, which were, like, they were talking about their favorite Westerns, and they brought up Star Wars. And they're like, yep, Star Wars is one of our favorite Westerns. Like, and you're going to say, oh, it's a sci-fi and whatnot, but it's very heavily influenced.
Yeah, there's enough space Westerns out there nowadays.
Exactly, yeah.
Firefly, Cowboy Bebop. It's just, just kind of fits into that little collection of interesting sci-fi, but also Western films.
For sure, yeah.
Someone I watched that with pointed out that the music
is
different. Like, it's not very John Williams-y.
Yeah, well, you know what? I did not mind at all. I thought that was totally fine because I find in some of the other Star Wars stuff that I've seen where it's not John Williams scoring the music, but it's someone else, they're basically just repeating a lot of his themes and then kind of doing their own stuff, which sounds like Star Wars, but sometimes you can tell, you're like, that's not John Williams. That's someone trying to emulate John Williams.
Yeah, so I think it helped. Like, there were times where it's like, yeah, this sounds like Star Wars music, but then other times like, oh, like, no, this is different enough that it kind of feels like its own thing.
Yeah.
So, yeah, the music is certainly one of the ways that it kind of sets itself apart. The special effects were kind of janky in spots for me. Like, I'm like, that's, if this show becomes terrible for me, it's going to come down to how bad the visual effects look, because it doesn't look all bad.
Yep.
But there's certain shots with creatures and
yes. Yeah, no, I know
and the like where I'm like, that's not convincing. That looks like it's, and listen, I watched The Flash. Okay, so the visual effects on that show are sometimes not convincing, and I get it. They're trying to do a lot on a TV budget. It's hard to do.
It is, yeah.
But for me, like somebody who, I mean, I don't work in film, but I watch enough movies where I can kind of tell when something's not there, or when it doesn't look convincing.
Oh, for sure.
And it kind of draws me out of the experience.
Definitely, yeah. And I think from what I can remember, I guess that's kind of one of the effective things about and I mean, I guess if we're talking about the pilot episode, there are a fair amount of visual effects, but there are also just some scenes where it's people like in a bar type, if you will, or outside or whatnot, that there aren't as many visual effects. It's nice that like the Mandalorian character, just like his look, like he doesn't need visual effects until obviously they start firing off blasters and this and that. But yes, I kind of felt that too, which I don't know. I feel like I'm a little forgiving of, because once again, if you have a good story and good characters and and the pilot hooked me, I honestly did not think I'd be watching this show, but after watching the pilot, now I'm going to watch this show, and I'm willing to forgive the visual effects because there's still so many other good aspects to the show in its first episode alone.
Admittedly, while I was watching The Mandalorian, I became annoyed because The Mandalorian is a character that wears a helmet.
Yeah.
That covers his entire face.
Yeah.
And they're able to get performance out of him.
Yeah.
They're able to have his body language communicate a lot.
Yep.
His line readings.
Yep. Head movements with like the way the helmet looks or whether it moves or not. I was paying attention to that.
So this is to the MCU.
Yeah.
Please stop peeling back all the heroes' masks and helmets just so you can see the actors' faces.
Yeah.
Because it is getting annoying.
Yeah.
I don't want to see. I mean, Iron Man's dead now. I don't have to worry about that. But keep Spider-Man's mask on. Keep Black Panther's mask on. If War Machine's in more movies, keep his mask on. Keep Ant-Man's mask on. Like, I'm so tired of all their everything coming.
Yeah,
off.
because it's a simple solution, so you can always see their face. But I mean, we already know what they look like. I think people would be patient with
the Mandalorian shows that you can have these characters with their faces completely covered and make it work.
Yeah.
So Disney, tell Marvel.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Follow them in, and Jon Favreau, just
order them because you own them.
Yes. Okay, that's my big nitpick.
So the Mandalorian, actually, yeah, about that aspect of him kind of keeping his helmet on and whatnot, and I don't know whether they're going to, I haven't seen the second episode yet, I don't know whether they're going to keep his helmet on throughout the whole series or the first season, or who knows how they might. I can see them taking a few different routes with it, but him keeping his helmet on and talking here and there reminded me a lot of Master Chief from Halo. Now, I haven't played all the Halo games. I've played through like basically the first one and part of the second one years ago when I was a teenager. But I remember, I think I even remember asking some of my friends who are big Halo fans, do you ever see Master Chief's face? And I think the answer was no, if I remember correctly. Like there's certain like cut scenes where you see like Master Chief about to take his helmet on, but then like they pan the camera away so that you don't get to see his face by the time he's taking it off completely. And I do kind of like that air of mystery, because it really does help you imagine like what does this guy look like. And if you're not imagining that, looking at this helmet, I think it's just kind of a cool character decision, because, yeah, like you say with Marvel, there's this concern that like, oh, they're going to lose interest if this doesn't happen, if that doesn't happen, if we don't quench their thirst for this certain thing. And it's like, no, if you have a good story and good characters and you have people interested in the direction of this show, like I liked the fact that like he kept his helmet on the whole time, and that I would totally be cool if like we waited a really long time before he ever did take his helmet off. Like, I mean, I know what the actor looks like underneath.
I was gonna say, just Google Pedro Pascal. And
That's right. You'll see what he looks like.
Yeah.
But I thought that was cool.
All right, so we're gonna get into some spoilers now, just to talk about specific things that happen in the Mandalorian pilot.
Yeah.
So we're in the spoilerverse.
The spoiler.
There'll be a time code where you can skip around these spoilers.
Yep.
In the second episode, which you just said you haven't seen yet.
I haven't.
Yeah, they apparently their new shows launch new episodes on Fridays.
Okay.
So even though the platform launched on Tuesday with episode 1,
yep,
episode 2 came out on Friday.
Okay.
So we watched the first 2 episodes last night.
Cool.
In the second episode, we see a lot of Jawas.
Cool.
So there's a lot of suspicion among the people I watched with that it's set on Tatooine.
Right.
I would like to believe that they're not so lazy they're just going to keep using the same handful of planets, and that there are just Jawas on other planets, but
probably
it's not confirmed. They kind of leave it ambiguous for you.
Yeah.
And what did you think about Nick Nolte in the Star Wars universe? Was that weird for you?
Well, no, but he's not in the first episode, right?
He's not? He's that little guy.
He's the little right. Sorry, no, he's the I have spoken guy, right?
Oh,
yeah. Sorry, I totally forgot that was him, which I guess is good is good casting, that because like I know who he is, but yeah, that's so funny.
It was so weird to hear his voice in a Star Wars thing. I was like, it's this guy who's in all these like serious and like weird movies.
Yeah,
Star Wars.
No, I really liked that character, and I also I thought that was such a cool touch where like he kind of talks about the way things should be and this and that, and then the Mandalorian disagrees, and he's like, I have spoken. I'm like, man, that is so cool. That is so badass. I feel like people are going to start using that now. It's like, oh, I have this controversial opinion. Wait, what about this? What about that? I have spoken.
Yeah, I can't remember. In the pilot, did they show the Mandalorian going into like the headquarters of the other Mandalorians? Because there's a scene, it might be in the second episode,
okay,
where he goes into like this, like it seems like a kind of like a housing space for other Mandalorians, because you see other people wearing helmets, and he goes into this room with like this woman wearing a helmet who looks like a tribal leader, and she like melts down a piece of metal.
Oh, that's right, that is in the pilot.
That is in the pilot. Yeah. Okay, so they're clearly like going there. I thought he was like the last Mandalorian, but clearly he's not, and it's kind of cool. They're like, again, since I'm not familiar with the books that talk about the Mandalorian culture, they do enough to kind of like show you like there is something here, and it'll hopefully be explored.
Yeah.
They also have these random flashes to like his childhood.
Yes, that's right.
So like I guess there'll be more with that as well.
Yeah, for sure.
So I'm excited that they're kind of introducing those elements. And just the idea that he, like, for whatever reason, wants, like, the most expensive bounty. So he's, like, willing to work for ex-Empire people.
Yeah, exactly.
It's very, very interesting stuff. I mean, Carl Weathers, I just thought was weird, just like another random actor to be in Star Wars.
That and Werner Herzog, who, like, I learned about in film school because I think he's German. He's a German filmmaker who's made all sorts of interesting, eclectic movies and whatnot. Very much like art house foreign films and such. And, seeing him, it's like, that's interesting, because like I've only ever seen like what films he's directed. I've never seen him in person, so I thought that whole encounter was really cool.
But I guess the big spoiler with The Mandalorian is that at the end of the pilot, he finds this 50-year-old life form that is basically from the same race of creature as Yoda.
Yes.
And we asked Google what kind of alien Yoda was, and apparently to date his species has not been named.
Yeah, I was wondering about that because I thought I read a name somewhere years ago because I was asking the same question, like, what is the name of Yoda's species? And I thought I found a name somewhere. But I guess if it's saying, like, no, it doesn't have a name, I'm like, oh, my goodness, like, I got to know.
And everyone's calling it Baby Yoda.
Yep.
Just to give it a name because
Basically.
since the race is unnamed. So
Yeah.
we realize it's not a baby. Although some people are theorizing it's like Yoda reincarnated or something. But
Who knows?
But that would be an interesting thing to introduce to Star Wars. But yeah, they introduced this little tiny 50-year-old baby. And I guess if Yoda aliens live to be 900 years old, then
Right.
maybe they would spend a good chunk of time as like a little baby.
No, for sure. Yeah, like that was something that I thought that was like, I was already really enjoying the pilot. And I feel like that was the nice cherry on top of like, what is the thing he's looking for that's apparently 50 years old? And seeing this little baby Yoda, I was like, okay, like I get on the one hand, it feels a little bit like fan service, right? Because like, you know, we've seen Yoda a number of times in the movies and in the Clone Wars and all that. But yeah, seeing and assuming hopefully that it's not Yoda and it's another like a baby of Yoda's species. I just thought that was so cool in the fact that the IG-11, I think was the name of
IG-88.
Is it?
Yeah.
Is it though? Because I think I looked actually somewhere where someone was talking about like it has a different name, but it's the same model. It's the same model as IG-88.
All right, here we go. I'm going to Wikipedia.
No, please, no, yeah. Let's clarify this.
So Wikipedia, if you're not familiar, is like the Star Wars wiki.
Oh, I know.
Well, I know you know, but the people.
Oh, sorry, right. The people listening, yeah.
Okay, let's see. IG-88, also known as IG-88B, or as a Fultroid, was a rogue, deadly, masculine IG series assassin droid manufactured by Holowan Laboratories, who worked as a bounty hunter.
Mm-hmm.
Following the Battle of Hoth, he and several other bounty hunters were summoned by Darth Vader. Blah 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 blah.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because here on IMDb, Taika Waititi, the voice of the droid, is listed as IG-11.
Oh.
Yeah. But I think the whole point is, to call back to IG-88, who I believe is in the lineup of bounty hunters that we see on the Star Destroyer and Empire Strikes Back.
All right, well, let me look for IG-11 on Wikipedia and see what comes up. Okay, IG-11,
Yep.
Past tense, was an IG.
It was,
series droid
yeah.
who works as a bounty hunter. He was often mistaken for IG-88, a famous bounty hunter droid. Okay.
Yeah, so I like that reveal at the end. I thought that was cool. I like that the Mandalorian takes IG-11 out, even though IG-11 is like, oh, let's kill it, right? But it's that nice sense of like, here's a bounty hunter. He kind of does his work, but clearly he might have a bit of a soft spot for this little baby Yoda. We will see, but yeah, I really like
and
that.
In episode 2, Baby Yoda uses the Force.
Does he really?
He like lifts a creature up in the air for like 30 seconds, and then he like passes out. And then he passes out for days.
Oh, man.
But he's so cute. Like, I was like squeeing the whole time
yeah.
he was on screen. The way he moved his little...
Who can use the Force? Who can use the Force? You can.
I'm just thinking about it. It makes me like, he's so... Like, you don't see him very much in episode 1, but trust me, in episode 2...
That's awesome. Cool. Okay, then
so cute.
I'm going to have to watch that soon then.
And it just adds more mystery. It's like, what does this mean?
Right,
Who is this character? Why does the Empire want this guy dead? Does that have anything to do with the Sith? And And who knows? So there's a lot of questions that are raised by that.
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember again. The two episodes are kind of merging together in my mind. But there's a lot of moments where the Mandalorian looks pretty pathetic. Like he gets his butt handed to him a couple of times.
Right. Yeah, definitely in the pilot.
Like he's a real badass in the bar scene.
Yeah.
But then there's other moments where he gets his butt handed to him.
While trying to ride that big creature.
Yeah.
What's it called again?
I don't remember.
Some kind of the slurg or the turg or what?
But in the second episode, he literally gets his butt handed to him by a monster, and he like gets pretty much dummied. Like his flamethrower doesn't do anything.
Oh wow, yeah.
It's only Baby Yoda that saves him.
Yeah, but you know what? That's kind of cool. I like the thought of that because a lot of the characters we see in the Star Wars universe. Sometimes they start feeling a little invincible, right? They start feeling like superheroes, and they have, like all their lightsabers, and you can use the Force and this and that. There might be some little thing, but for the most part, they're exceptional at what they do. So it's kind of cool, actually, that you have a bounty hunter here that, for the most part, seems pretty good at what he does. But once in a while, when he gets into unfamiliar territory, he's at a disadvantage.
So you're okay with the fact that he's not invincible?
Oh yeah, in fact, I prefer it. I think that's far more interesting if he's not invincible.
Fair. Well, any other spoilery things about The Mandalorian before we wrap up here?
Yeah, I would just say I like what I really enjoyed about the first episode, at least, was that In a lot of the Star Wars movies and TV shows, especially the Clone Wars, it seems like there's always this focus on big intergalactic conflict, right? There's always, all these different armies and this and that, and the Jedi getting involved, and there's lots of big things going on, which, to be fair, like Star Wars a lot of the times is a spectacle. It is like you go and it's this big, exciting event. But what I loved about the pilot of The Mandalorian was the fact that you have the Mandalorian, who, he goes to this one bar and he gets the one kind of blue fish looking guy, freezes him in carbonite, which kind of was a fun callback to Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. And then he goes for like another assignment. And really, we're just kind of watching this guy go on his assignment. And I wouldn't be surprised if with each passing episode, things get bigger and bigger as TV shows tend to do. But I kind of like the fact that you are watching this small conflict of like, here's a bounty hunter, and let's see him try and get his bounty. We're not sure what he's going after, but we'll see where that goes. And I just liked that it felt kind of a small scale. I thought that was really cool, a different change for Star Wars, and also focus on a character that we don't know, but we will get to know as we watch this show.
All right, my head is getting very hot with this hat on, so
yeah.
I'm taking that off. Wow. So final thoughts on The Mandalorian. If you're a Star Wars fan, and I would even go as far as to say if you've never seen anything Star Wars related and you want to start with somewhere, check it out. Like, it's definitely worth, and this is more of my commentary on Disney Plus. If you're a Star Wars fan or looking to get into Star Wars, then definitely get Disney Plus now. Like, for me, Mandalorian episode 1 is easily 3.5 out of 4 bad cookies.
Yeah, I'd probably give it something like 3.3, but it was better than I was expecting it to be, and I really enjoyed it. And yeah, like I said, I heard about this show, I wasn't planning on watching it anytime soon, but I watched the pilot and I'm like, well, it did what it was supposed to do. It now has me hooked, so I'm probably going to wait a few more weeks, and then I'll probably watch it around Christmas time so I can watch like an episode or 2 a day. I won't like binge it crazy, but I'll kind of watch a few episodes a day.
Yeah, and for Disney Plus as a service, overall, it's about a 3 for me out of 4 right now. It's weird to rate a whole service, but
yeah, I know.
If you're a Star Wars fan, definitely get it now. Otherwise, if you don't have kids or are really into watching Disney things, then maybe wait until later to get it for sure. Yeah. So we don't have any mail this week, but I thought I'd ask a mail-related question to kind of like help people remember what are the kind of questions we wanted. We'd love to answer any questions. But here you go, Ben the Movie Buff. Here's a question.
Okay.
Every year we do a ranking of the comic book films released in a year.
Ooh,
and there are films that are based on comic books. This year, there's a movie called Glass that came out.
Yes.
It is not based on a comic book, but it is, I would say, inspired by comic books.
Absolutely.
As far as you're concerned, do you think we should be including Glass in our rankings of comic book films of 2019?
Oh, what a doozy. That's a tough one. I would, if you're personally asking me, I would say yes. I'd say I feel like it would make the list more interesting because it would, like we talked about Glass earlier this year, and I remember while I liked the movie, I didn't think it was a perfect movie. There were definitely some big bold moves that M. Night Shyamalan made towards the end of it.
By bold you mean stupid?
Not yes and no, not all. But I think shoot, that is a tough one. You know what? Just for kicks, I would include it, unless someone was specifically saying rank the comic book movies, and by comic book movies we mean movies that are specifically based on comic. But if someone were just generally saying comic book movies, then I would include Glass.
Because here's the thing. We have movies this year like Men in Black International.
Right.
Men in Black as a franchise was originally a comic book, but Men in Black International specifically is not based on a specific comic book.
That's right, yeah.
To me, that is that's more of a comic book film than Glass would be.
Right.
Because Glass is inspired by comic books,
but
it's
fair.
Also about comic books. So in a certain way, it's more of a comic book film than Men in Black International.
Yeah. It's interesting, trying to find this criteria of those movies and what's more of a comic book film than the other. But no, I'd say they're both, I would call them both comic book films, even if they're not specifically based on issues 1 to 10 or whatnot. So,
I mean, we did include Incredibles 2 last year under the logic that if it weren't for comic books, that movie wouldn't have been made.
Yeah, that's a fair point. Yeah,
so
that's
I think
good.
that same logic can be extended to Glass.
No, that's fair. So when do we rank these comic book movies? Does that happen at a later date?
It's going to be happening, next couple of weeks here.
Okay.
I'll tell you about it more once you remind the people how to get a hold of us.
Absolutely. Let me just get the sheet. Here it is. All right. If you want to contact the show with a question or an idea for an episode, you can send us an email to
batjarpodcast@gmail.com.
or you can tweet us at
The Bat Cookie Jar.
We are available on Apple Podcasts, Google Play Music, Stitcher Radio, Spotify, SoundCloud, or wherever you get your podcasts. Share our posts on Facebook and make sure to like our page because we want everyone to join us inside the Bat Jar.
That's right. So to answer your question, so next week's episode is going to be Frozen 2.
Right, that's right, yeah.
Hard to believe it's...
Wow, 6 years, huh?
Yeah,
since the first
already
one.
upon us.
Yep.
And then the week after that will be the comic book films of 2019.
Nice. Awesome.
So I'm trying to get Asian John for that one.
Oh, Asian John. Oh, man.
He hasn't been on the show in a long time.
Yep.
So, yeah, so the next couple weeks are pretty interesting. And then as we get closer to Christmas, we got to talk about something Christmas related, of course.
Yep.
Star Wars Holiday Special is something we're going to do this year.
Oh, that'd be...
And then The Rise of Skywalker is coming out as well.
Yes. Oh, man.
So we probably won't be picking new topics out of the Bat Jar for the rest of the year.
Yeah.
But the Bat Jar has to be here for the podcast.
Absolutely.
It's just not the same with Adam. So
It's not. Hi there.
So there you go. Come back to the Bat Jar podcast next week when we talk about the highly anticipated Frozen 2. And until that time, I'm Average Joe.
I'm Ben the Movie Buff.
Catch you on the flip side.
See you in the next one.